Roger Shaw's diplomatic mission to the Andorian homeworld took an unexpected turn the moment he stepped off his ship. Two stunning alien females approached him, their blue skin glistening in the planet's eerie purple light. Their antennae twitched with obvious curiosity as they brazenly asked, "What's between your legs, human male?" The human diplomat felt his face flush as he struggled to maintain his composure. This wasn't how he'd envisioned the start of crucial trade negotiations that could secure vital resources for Earth's expanding colonies. The fate of humanity's interstellar ambitions now hung in the balance, teetering on the edge of an awkward cultural misunderstanding. Hector, the Andorian chief negotiator, had greeted Roger with formal politeness upon his arrival. The blue-skinned humanoid's antennae had moved in what Roger assumed was a gesture of welcome. But as Hector introduced his assistants, Zara and Leary, it became clear that the Andorians' limited experience with humans would complicate matters. During the welcoming ceremony, Roger noticed Zara and Leary whispering and pointing at him. Their fascination with his anatomy was evident, and he found it increasingly difficult to focus on the diplomatic pleasantries being exchanged. As the group moved towards the negotiation chambers, the two female Andorians seized their chance. Falling behind the main delegation, Zara and Leary cornered Roger. Their direct question about his anatomy left him momentarily speechless. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could form a coherent answer, Hector's voice cut through the air. The Andorian chief negotiator had overheard the exchange and was visibly agitated. His antennae whipped back and forth as he berated Zara and Leary for their inappropriate behavior. The reprimand created instant tension within the Andorian delegation, and Roger realized he needed to act fast to salvage the situation. As they entered the negotiation chambers, Roger noticed other Andorian officials giving him curious looks. Word of the incident had clearly spread quickly. He knew he had to address this cultural misunderstanding delicately to prevent it from derailing the talks entirely. The human diplomat's mind raced. The Andorians' lack of knowledge about human biology could jeopardize the entire negotiation process. He realized that educating them about humans might be crucial for the success of the mission. But how could he broach such a sensitive topic without further offending his hosts or compromising his professional demeanor? Roger took a deep breath, acutely aware of the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Back on Earth, government officials anxiously awaited news of the negotiations. A successful trade agreement with the Andorians would secure vital resources for humanity's expanding colonies, fueling their growth and ensuring Earth's place among the stars. As he approached the negotiation table, Roger knew he had to find a way to navigate this unexpected cultural clash. He had to balance diplomacy with education, tact with honesty. The future of Earth's interstellar ambitions now hinged on his ability to bridge the gap between human and Andorian understanding. With a mix of determination and apprehension, Roger prepared to address the room. He had come to the Andorian homeworld to secure a trade deal, but now he faced a far more complex challenge: explaining human anatomy to a room full of curious aliens while maintaining the dignity of his diplomatic mission. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance, all because of a simple question about what lay between his legs. Roger cleared his throat, drawing the attention of the Andorian delegation. "Esteemed colleagues, I believe we've encountered a cultural misunderstanding that needs addressing before we can proceed effectively. If you'll allow me, I'd like to request a brief recess to discuss a potential solution with Chief Negotiator Hector." Hector's antenna twitched in surprise, but he nodded his assent. "Very well, Ambassador Shaw. Let us take a short break." As the other delegates filed out of the chamber, Roger approached Hector. The Andorian's blue skin seemed to shimmer under the room's ambient lighting, his four antennae now fixed intently on Roger. "Chief Negotiator," Roger began, "I propose we organize an informal cultural exchange session. It would allow me to educate your delegation about human biology and customs, which I believe will alleviate any distractions and help us focus on our negotiations." Hector considered for a moment, his antenna swaying gently. "An interesting proposal, Ambassador. I see the potential benefits for our discussions. Very well, let us proceed with your suggestion." Within the hour, Roger found himself standing before the Andorian delegation in a large conference room. A holographic display flickered to life beside him, as he began his impromptu lecture on human anatomy. Humans, like Andorians, are bipedal mammals, Roger explained, gesturing to a rotating 3D model of a human body. However, we lack certain features you possess, such as antennae. Our biology also differs in several key aspects. As Roger delved into the intricacies of human physiology, he noticed the rapt attention of his audience. Zara and Leary, in particular, leaned forward in their seats, their earlier embarrassment replaced by genuine fascination. One of the most significant differences between our species, Roger continued, is our method of reproduction. Humans exhibit sexual dimorphism, meaning we have two distinct biological sexes, male and female. The holographic display shifted to show side-by-side comparisons of male and female human anatomy. A murmur of interest rippled through the room as the Andorians took in the stark differences. Unlike Andorians, who I understand have 4 distinct sexes, humans reproduce through the union of male and female gametes, Roger explained, carefully choosing his words to maintain scientific accuracy while respecting cultural sensitivities. As he concluded his presentation, Roger noticed a palpable shift in the room's atmosphere. The initial discomfort that had permeated the negotiations had dissipated, replaced by an air of understanding and curiosity. Hector approached Roger as the other delegates began to disperse. "Ambassador Shaw, I must commend you on your handling of this situation. Your willingness to bridge our cultural gap is admirable. I believe we can now proceed with our negotiations more effectively." Roger nodded, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. "Thank you, Chief Negotiator. I look forward to our continued discussions." As they re-entered the negotiation chamber, Roger could sense the change in dynamics. The Andorian delegates seemed more at ease, their focus sharpened on the task at hand. Progress came swiftly as they tackled key points of the trade agreement. Hours later, as the day's session concluded, Roger's communicator chirped. A message from Earth scrolled across the screen. "Excellent work, Ambassador Shaw. Your superiors commend your quick thinking and adaptability. Continue fostering positive relationships. Human scientific team en route to assist with further cultural exchange and Andorian biological studies. Keep up the good work." Roger allowed himself a small smile of relief before tucking the communicator away. His work was just getting started, but he'd successfully navigated the day's challenges. That evening, Roger found himself entering an ornate Andorian dining hall, its high ceilings adorned with bioluminescent flora that cast a soft, ethereal glow over the gathering. As he made his way through the crowd, he spotted Zara and Leary approaching. "Ambassador Shaw," Zara began, her antenna dipping in what Roger now recognized as a gesture of respect. "We wish to apologize for our earlier behavior. Your presentation was most enlightening." Leary nodded in agreement. "Indeed, we've gained a new appreciation for human culture. Thank you for your patience and understanding." Roger accepted their apologies graciously, sensing an opportunity to strengthen personal connections. There's no need for apologies. Cultural exchange is a two-way street, and I'm eager to learn more about Andorian customs as well. As the dinner progressed, Roger found himself engrossed in conversation with Leary. To his surprise, she revealed a deep passion for Earth's classical music. "I've been studying human compositions in secret," Leary confessed, her antenna quivering with excitement. "The works of your Mozart and Beethoven are particularly fascinating. The complexity of human harmonies is unlike anything in Andorian music." Roger's eyebrows rose in surprise. "I had no idea Earth's music had reached Andoria. What drew you to it?" As Leary launched into an enthusiastic explanation of the mathematical patterns she'd discovered in human musical structures, Roger made a mental note. This unexpected common ground could prove valuable in future negotiations. Meanwhile, Zara engaged Roger in a discussion about human combat techniques. "I hold a high rank in the Andorian military," she explained, her posture straightening with pride. "Your species' martial arts intrigue me. I see potential applications for our defense forces." Roger nodded, careful to balance openness with discretion. "Perhaps we could arrange a demonstration during the cultural exchange program. I'm sure our scientific team would be interested in studying Andorian combat methods as well." As the evening wore on, Roger found himself constantly observing and analyzing the complex social dynamics at play among the Andorian officials. He noticed subtle antenna movements that seemed to convey unspoken messages, the way certain delegates deferred to others, and the intricate dance of alliances that shifted with each conversation. Returning to his quarters late that night, Roger's mind buzzed with the day's events. He'd made significant progress, both diplomatically and personally, but he knew challenges still lay ahead. The arrival of the human scientific team could introduce new variables, and the trade negotiations were far from concluded. As he prepared for bed, Roger couldn't help but ponder his growing connection with Lyri. Her passion for human culture could be a valuable asset, but he had to be careful not to let personal feelings interfere with his diplomatic mission. Lying in bed, Roger stared at the alien ceiling, its bioluminescent patterns slowly shifting in hypnotic waves. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and perhaps new revelations about this complex world he was only beginning to understand. With a mix of anticipation and apprehension, he closed his eyes, ready to face whatever the Andorian world had in store for him. As Roger drifted off to sleep, the bioluminescent patterns on the ceiling seemed to dance, mirroring the complex web of relationships and diplomacy he was weaving on this alien world. The next morning, Roger woke before the Andorian sun had fully risen. He sat up in bed, his mind already racing with the day's agenda. The human scientific team was due to arrive, and he knew their presence would add a new layer of complexity to the delicate situation. As he dressed, Roger reviewed his notes from the previous evening's dinner. His conversations with Lyri and Zara had been enlightening, but he couldn't shake a nagging concern. The growing personal connections he was forming with the two Andorians could potentially compromise his objectivity in the negotiations. Roger made a conscious decision as he straightened his uniform. He would maintain a professional distance from now on. The stakes were too high to risk any perception of bias or impropriety. At the spaceport, Roger stood tall as the sleek human shuttle touched down. Dr. Marcus Chen, the leader of the scientific team, was the first to disembark. His salt and pepper hair was cropped short, and his eyes sparkled with terrifying excitement as he took in the alien landscape. "Ambassador Shaw," Dr. Chen greeted, extending his hand. "It's an honor to be here." Roger shook his hand firmly. "Welcome to Andoria, Dr. Chen. I trust your journey was uneventful." As the rest of the team filed out of the shuttle, Roger quickly briefed Dr. Chen on the current state of affairs. "We've made some progress in cultural understanding, but there's still a long way to go. Your team's expertise will be invaluable." Dr. Chen nodded, his expression serious. "We're prepared for the challenge. Our team includes experts in xenobiology, anthropology, and linguistics. We're here to facilitate further cultural exchange and study Andorian biology in depth." The formal introduction of the scientific team to the Andorian delegation was held in a grand hall within the government complex. Hector stood at the forefront of the Andorian group, his antennae twitching with interest as Roger introduced each member of the human team. Everything was proceeding smoothly until Dr. Emily Foster, a xenobiologist, approached the Andorian delegates. Suddenly, her face contorted in pain, and she collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. The room erupted in chaos. Andorians backed away in alarm, their antennae whipping back and forth. Human scientists rushed to Dr. Foster's side, calling out for medical assistance. Roger's training kicked in immediately. He strode to the center of the room, his voice cutting through the panic. "Everyone, please remain calm. Dr. Chen, what's happening?" Dr. Chen was already kneeling beside Dr. Foster, his medical scanner whirring. "It appears to be an acute allergic reaction, likely to an Andorian pheromone she's never encountered before." Roger nodded, his mind racing. He turned to Hector, who was watching the scene with a mix of concern and fascination. "Chief Negotiator, we need to clear the room of all Andorians immediately. The pheromones may exacerbate her condition." Hector hesitated for only a moment before nodding. He barked out orders in the Andorian language, and the delegates quickly filed out, leaving only the human team in the room. Roger knelt beside Dr. Chen. "What can I do to help?" "We need to administer epinephrine," Dr. Chen said, rummaging through his medical kit. "But our standard doses aren't calibrated for Andorian biochemistry. We'll need to modify it on the fly." Roger watched in amazement as Dr. Chen and his team worked with precise efficiency. They quickly synthesized a modified version of the medication and administered it to Dr. Foster. Within minutes, her breathing eased and color returned to her face. As Dr. Foster was being helped to her feet, Hector re-entered the room, his antennae quivering with concern. "Is your colleague all right, Ambassador Shaw?" Roger nodded, relief evident in his voice. "Yes, thanks to the quick action of our medical team. Dr. Foster had an unexpected allergic reaction to an Andorian pheromone. It's something we'll need to study further to prevent future incidents." Hector's antennae perked up with interest. "Fascinating. I've never seen such efficient medical intervention. Ambassador, I believe this incident, while unfortunate, has revealed an opportunity. Perhaps we should consider incorporating a medical technology exchange into our trade negotiations?" Roger's eyebrows rose in surprise. This unexpected development could open up new avenues for cooperation between their species. "That's an excellent suggestion, Chief Negotiator. I believe both our peoples could benefit greatly from such an exchange." As Dr. Foster recovered, the scientific team wasted no time in setting up their temporary research facility. The Andorian government had allocated a section of their complex for this purpose, and soon the area was buzzing with activity. Word of the human scientists' presence spread quickly through the Andorian population. To Roger's surprise, many Andorians volunteered to participate in the studies, their natural curiosity overcoming any lingering reservations about the off-worlders. Seeing an opportunity to strengthen diplomatic ties, Roger approached Hector with a proposal. "Chief Negotiator, I believe we could capitalize on this interest. What if we organized a series of public lectures where both human and Andorian scientists could share their knowledge?" Hector's antennae twitched thoughtfully. "An intriguing idea, Ambassador. It would certainly foster goodwill among our people. Very well, let us make it happen." The lectures quickly became the talk of the Andorian capital. Large crowds gathered to hear human scientists explain concepts of Earth biology, physics, and culture, while Andorian experts shared insights into their own advanced sciences. Roger was attending one such lecture, feeling a sense of pride at the success of his initiative, when chaos erupted. A group of Andorians burst into the lecture hall, brandishing energy weapons. Their leader, a tall Andorian with scarred antennae, shouted, "End this human invasion now! Off-worlders have no place on Andoria." The crowd panicked, attendees scrambling for the exits. Roger's hand instinctively went to his side, but he carried no weapon. He scanned the room, looking for options. Suddenly, Zara appeared at his side, her own weapon drawn. "Ambassador, stay behind me. My security team is moving to neutralize the threat." Roger shook his head. "No, we do this together. We need to show unity in the face of this threat." Zara's antennae twitched in surprise, but she nodded. Together they moved towards the extremists, Roger's human martial arts training complementing Zara's Andorian military tactics. The skirmish was intense but brief. Roger ducked under an energy blast, closing the distance to the nearest attacker. He executed a perfect judo throw, disarming the Andorian and pinning him to the ground. Beside him, Zara moved with fluid grace, her weapon set to stun as she took down two more extremists. Within minutes, the threat was neutralized. The extremists were subdued, with no casualties on either side. As Andorian security forces arrived to take the attackers into custody, Roger noticed the impressed looks from both humans and Andorians in the crowd. Hector approached, his antennae betraying his agitation. "Ambassador Shaw, I must apologize for this incident. I assure you, these extremists do not represent the views of the Andorian people." Roger nodded, still catching his breath. "I understand, Chief Negotiator. What matters is how we responded to the threat, together." As the adrenaline of the moment faded, Roger became aware of Zara standing close to him, her antennae curled in what he now recognized as a sign of admiration. He felt a connection forming between them, born from their shared experience in combat. But as he glanced around the room, his eyes met Leary's. She stood at the edge of the crowd, her expression a mix of relief and, was that jealousy? Roger realized that his growing closeness to Zara had not gone unnoticed, and it seemed to be causing Leary some distress. The implications of these developing relationships burdened immensely on Roger's mind as he returned to his quarters that evening. The day had been a whirlwind of scientific exchange, cultural misunderstandings, and now security threats. What had started as a straightforward trade negotiation had evolved into something far more complex. As he sat down at his desk, his communicator chirped. A message from Earth scrolled across the screen, marked urgent. Roger's heart sank as he read the contents. The human government, having learned of the extremist attack, was expressing serious concerns about the safety of the delegation. They were instructing him to prepare for a potential evacuation if the situation deteriorated further. Roger leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. He understood the government's concerns, but he also saw the progress they had made. The scientific exchange was yielding valuable results, and the majority of Andorians seemed eager to strengthen ties with humanity. He began drafting a response, arguing passionately for the continuation of the mission. He highlighted the positive outcomes of the day's events, the potential benefits of closer human-Andorian cooperation, and the importance of standing firm in the face of extremist threats. As he sent off his report, Roger gazed out the window at the alien landscape of Andoria. The success of the mission now hinged not just on his negotiation skills, but on his ability to navigate the complex web of interspecies relationships and conflicts that had developed. With the threat of evacuation looming and Andorian extremists still at large, Roger knew the coming days would be crucial. He would need to ensure the safety of the human delegation, continue the productive scientific and cultural exchange, and keep the trade negotiations on track. And through it all, he would have to carefully manage his growing personal connections with Leary and Zara. The potential for diplomatic complications was significant, but so too was the opportunity to forge deeper understanding between their species. As the bioluminescent flora outside his window pulsed with alien light, Roger began to plan his next moves. The challenges ahead were daunting, but he was determined to see this mission through. The future of human-Andorian relations. Relations hung in the balance. Roger's communicator chimed with an urgent message. He was being summoned to an emergency meeting with the Andorian High Council. As he hurried through the winding corridors of the government complex, Roger's mind raced. The extremist attack had shaken the delicate foundation of trust he'd been building. He knew he needed to act decisively to keep the negotiations on track. The High Council chamber was a cavernous room, its walls adorned with intricate ice sculptures that seemed to glow from within. Supreme Counselor Thraz, a statuesque Andorian with piercing blue eyes, sat at the head of a long table. His antennae twitched with nearly unleashed agitation as Roger entered. Ambassador Shaw, Thraz began, his voice echoing in the chamber. Yesterday's security breach is deeply troubling. It casts doubt on our ability to ensure the safety of your delegation and the viability of these negotiations. Roger straightened his back, meeting Thraz's gaze. Supreme Counselor, I share your concerns. However, I believe this incident also presents an opportunity. Thraz's antennae perked up with interest. Go on. I propose we establish a joint human-Andorian security task force, Roger said, his voice steady and confident. This would not only address the immediate threat, but also demonstrate the potential of our cooperation. A murmur rippled through the assembled council members. Thraz leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. An intriguing proposal, Ambassador. But how would this task force operate? Roger outlined his plan, emphasizing the sharing of intelligence and resources. As he spoke, he noticed Zara standing at attention near the chamber's entrance, her antennae twitching with what he now recognized as excitement. After a moment of deliberation, Thraz nodded. Very well, Ambassador. We will proceed with this joint task force. Commander Zara will serve as the Andorian liaison. Roger's heart leapt at the announcement. Working closely with Zara would undoubtedly strengthen their burgeoning connection, but he pushed aside personal thoughts to focus on the task at hand. In the days that followed, Roger and Zara threw themselves into their new roles. They pored over intelligence reports, analyzed security protocols, and coordinated training exercises for the mixed human-Andorian teams. Their efforts paid off when they uncovered a lead on the extremist base of operations. Huddled over a holographic map in a makeshift war room, Roger and Zara identified a series of abandoned ice caves on the outskirts of the capital. "It's the perfect hiding spot," Zara said, her antennae quivering with anticipation. "Difficult to access, easy to defend." Roger nodded, studying the terrain. "We'll need to move quickly and quietly. If we're right, this could be the break we need." As they finalized their plans for a raid on the extremist base, Roger received an unexpected visitor. Dr. Marcus Chen burst into his office, his eyes wide with excitement. "Ambassador, we've made a breakthrough," Chen exclaimed, practically bouncing on his feet. "We've identified a unique protein in Andorian physiology. The potential medical applications are staggering for both our species." Roger listened intently as Chen explained the discovery. He immediately grasped its significance, not just for science, but for diplomacy as well. This could be the edge they needed in the trade negotiations. As word of the scientific breakthrough spread, Roger noticed a shift in the Andorian attitude towards the human delegation. Curiosity replaced suspicion, and many Andorians volunteered to assist with further research. To his surprise, Leary was among the volunteers. She began working closely with Dr. Emily Foster, who had fully recovered from her allergic reaction. Roger watched from afar as the two women bent over microscopes, engaged in animated discussions about cellular structures and biochemical processes. The atmosphere of scientific collaboration was shattered when Roger received an urgent intelligence report. The extremists were planning a major attack on the human delegation, and time was running out. With iron will, Roger and Zara mobilized their joint task force. They gathered in a hangar filled with sleek Andorian shuttlecraft, modified to accommodate both species. As Roger addressed the assembled team, he felt the weight of two worlds on his shoulders. "We have one shot at this," he said, his voice carrying across the hangar. "Our mission is clear: neutralize the threat and bring these extremists to justice. Today, we prove that humans and Andorians are stronger together." The raid on the extremist base was a symphony of precision and teamwork. Human and Andorian operatives moved in perfect sync, their training paying off as they navigated the treacherous ice caves. Roger found himself in the thick of the action, adrenaline coursing through his veins as he and Zara led a team deeper into the complex. They encountered heavy resistance, energy weapons flashing in the dim light of the caves. With a series of hand signals, Roger coordinated a flanking maneuver. He watched in admiration as Zara executed a daring leap, using her Andorian agility to outmaneuver two extremists. Her stunning precision with her weapon left Roger momentarily breathless. In the end, the operation was a resounding success. The extremist leaders were captured, and a cache of advanced weaponry was seized. As they secured the base, Roger couldn't help but feel a surge of pride in what they had accomplished together. The successful raid had far-reaching consequences. Roger found himself elevated to near-heroic status among many Andorians, who were impressed by his strategic acumen and personal bravery. This newfound respect translated into a more cooperative attitude in the trade negotiations, with several Andorian officials now openly advocating for closer ties with humans. However, the victory was tempered by a disturbing revelation. During interrogation, the captured extremist leaders revealed that they had been receiving covert support from the Voth, a rival alien species who viewed the growing human-Andorian alliance as a threat to their regional dominance. This new information added layers of complexity to Roger's mission. He now found himself navigating not just the intricacies of Andorian internal politics, but the broader landscape of interstellar relations as well. The situation took another unexpected turn when Supreme Counselor Thraz called for an expansion of the trade negotiations to include a potential military alliance between humans and Andorians. Roger felt a knot form in his stomach as Thraz made the announcement. He lacked the authority to negotiate such an agreement without approval from Earth's government. As Roger grappled with this diplomatic dilemma, he became acutely aware of a growing tension between Zara and Leary. Both Andorian women had developed strong feelings for him, leading to subtle competition for his attention. He noticed the way Zara's antennae would curl possessively when Leary approached, and how Leary's eyes would narrow when she saw him working closely with Zara. Roger did his best to maintain a professional distance, but he couldn't deny the pull he felt towards both women. Each represented a different facet of Andorian culture that fascinated him. Zara with her military precision and strategic mind, Leary with her scientific curiosity and gentle demeanor. Amidst this personal turmoil, the human scientific team proposed a joint human Andorian research initiative focused on developing advanced medical technologies. The proposal gained traction among officials from both species, offering a potential avenue for long-term cooperation beyond the immediate trade negotiations. As news of the extremist plot and its foreign backing spread, public opinion on Andoria shifted dramatically. Crowds began to gather outside the negotiation center, holding signs supporting the alliance and cheering for Roger and his team whenever they appeared in public. Roger found himself at the center of a diplomatic storm, keenly aware that the decisions made in the coming days could reshape the balance of power in this sector of the galaxy. He sent an urgent request to Earth for additional diplomatic support and expanded negotiation parameters, knowing that the stakes had never been higher. As he prepared for a crucial meeting with Supreme Counselor Thraz to discuss the potential military alliance, Roger took a moment to gaze out at the alien landscape of Andoria. The shimmering ice fields and bioluminescent flora seemed to pulse with possibility. He drew a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. The future of human Andorian relations hung in the balance, and Roger was determined to navigate the personal and political complexities that had emerged during his time on this extraordinary world. Roger straightened his uniform and took a deep breath as he approached the imposing doors of the Andorian High Council chambers. The weight of two worlds rested on his shoulders as he prepared to discuss the potential military alliance with Supreme Counselor Thraz. As the doors slid open, Roger's eyes widened in surprise. Seated at the long, crystalline table were not only the familiar blue faces of the Andorian Council members, but also several humans in crisp Starfleet uniforms. At the center sat Admiral James Hawkins, his salt and pepper hair and weathered features a stark contrast to the icy surroundings. "Ambassador Shaw," Admiral Hawkins said, rising to greet him, "I hope you don't mind us dropping in unannounced. The situation has escalated beyond our initial parameters." Roger shook the Admiral's hand, his mind racing to adjust to this new development. "Not at all, Admiral. I'm glad to have the additional support." Supreme Counselor Thraz's antennae twitched as he called the meeting to order. "In light of recent events, we propose a joint human Andorian defense initiative against the Voth threat," he announced, his voice echoing in the cavernous chamber. As Admiral Hawkins engaged in the intricate dance of high-level negotiations, Roger found himself able to focus on the trade aspects he was more familiar with. He outlined the potential economic benefits of closer cooperation, his words painting a picture of prosperous exchange between their worlds. Suddenly, a young Andorian burst into the chamber, his antennae rigid with alarm. "Supreme Counselor, our long-range sensors have detected a Voth battle fleet approaching the system." The room erupted in a flurry of activity. Thraz's eyes narrowed as he turned to the human delegation. "It seems our theoretical alliance may be put to the test sooner than anticipated." Roger's mind raced, recalling the joint security task force he had established with Zara. "Supreme Counselor, I suggest we use our newly formed human Andorian security task force as the foundation for a rapid response unit." Zara, who had been standing at attention near the chamber's entrance, stepped forward. "I volunteer to lead the Andorian contingent," she said, her eyes meeting Roger's with a mix of perseverance and something deeper. Admiral Hawkins nodded approvingly. "The United Earth government is prepared to commit military resources to the defense of Andoria. This is an opportunity to demonstrate the strength of our alliance." As the council chamber transformed into an impromptu war room, Roger's communicator chimed. Dr. Chen's excited voice came through. "Ambassador, we've made a breakthrough. The Andorian protein we've been studying, it can enhance the effectiveness of human shielding technology." Roger's eyes lit up. "Dr. Chen, that's incredible. How quickly can we implement these enhancements?" "With Andorian assistance, we could have the first ships upgraded within hours," Chen replied. Roger relayed the information to the council. "This could give us a critical advantage against the Voth fleet," he explained. Thraz's antennae curled in approval. "I will direct our engineers to assist your team immediately, Dr. Chen." The research facility became a hive of activity as scientists and engineers from both species worked feverishly to upgrade the defensive systems. Leary volunteered to assist, her expertise in Andorian technology proving invaluable in the integration process. Meanwhile, Zara led a series of combat drills to improve coordination between human and Andorian forces. Roger found himself participating, demonstrating human tactics, and marveling at the grace and precision of Andorian combat techniques. During a brief respite, Zara approached Roger, her antennae quivering slightly. "Your skills are impressive, Ambassador. I never expected a diplomat to hold his own in combat drills." Roger wiped sweat from his brow, acutely aware of her proximity. "Full disclosure, I may have had some Starfleet training before switching to the diplomatic corps." Zara's lips curled into a smile, but before she could respond, an alarm blared. The Voth fleet had entered the outer reaches of the Andorian system. As they rushed to the command center, Roger received an intelligence report detailing a potential weakness in Voth ship design. He quickly shared the information with Zara and Admiral Hawkins, and together they developed a strategy to exploit this vulnerability. The joint human-Andorian fleet took up defensive positions around Andoria, a mix of sleek Andorian vessels and sturdy human ships forming a protective barrier. Roger stood on the bridge of the Andorian flagship, his heart pounding as he watched the enemy fleet approach on the interface. Supreme Counselor Thraz's voice came through the communication system. "Ambassador Shaw, in recognition of your contributions and commitment to our alliance, I hereby grant you honorary status in the Andorian military for the duration of this crisis." Roger nodded solemnly, feeling the weight of the responsibility. He turned to Zara and Admiral Hawkins, both poised for action. "Let's show them what our alliance can do." The Voth fleet entered weapons range, and space lit up with the flash of energy, weapons and the glow of shield impacts. The enhanced shields held strong, allowing the human Andorian forces to weather the initial assault. Roger's voice rang out clear and steady as he coordinated communication between the Allied ships. "Human vessels, provide covering fire for the Andorian strike teams. Andorian ships, prepare for precision strikes on the designated weak points." The battle raged, a deadly dance of ships weaving through the stars. Roger watched in awe as human and Andorian tactics merged seamlessly, the strengths of each species complementing the other. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. Voth ships faltered under the relentless assault, their weak points exploited by the precise Andorian strikes. Cheers erupted across the command center as the enemy fleet began to retreat, leaving behind disabled ships and debris. As the last Voth vessel disappeared from sensors, a sense of disbelief settled over the bridge. They had done it. The human-Andorian alliance had faced its first true test and emerged victorious. In the days that followed, Roger found himself at the center of a whirlwind of activity. He was hailed as a hero by both humans and Andorians, his role in fostering the alliance and contributing to the battle strategy, earning him respect and admiration from all sides. Supreme Counselor Thraz officially recognized Roger's contributions in a public ceremony, presenting him with a ceremonial Andorian blade. "Ambassador Shaw," Thraz announced to the gathered crowd, "you have proven yourself a true friend of Andoria. May this blade serve as a symbol of the bond between our peoples." As Roger accepted the blade, his eyes scanned the crowd. He saw Zara standing tall and proud in her military uniform, her antennae curled in what he now recognized as affection. Nearby stood Leary, her eyes shining with a mix of admiration and something more complex. The battle had accelerated the negotiations for a formal human-Andorian alliance. Roger found himself working closely with Admiral Hawkins to draft a comprehensive agreement covering trade, scientific cooperation, and mutual defense. As they pored over the details of the agreement, Roger became aware of the broader implications of their work. Reports were coming in of other alien races in the sector, taking notice of the emerging human-Andorian partnership. Some viewed it with interest, others with trepidation. "We're reshaping the balance of power in this part of the galaxy," Admiral Hawkins mused, leaning back in his chair. "The success of this alliance could have far-reaching consequences." Roger nodded, his mind already racing with the potential diplomatic challenges ahead. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The foundation had been laid for a partnership that could change the course of interstellar relations. As he left the negotiation room, Roger found himself face to face with both Zara and Leary. The shared experience of the battle had intensified his connections with both women, creating a complex emotional situation that he knew he would have to navigate carefully. "Ambassador," Zara said, her voice carrying a hint of warmth that belied her formal address. "We're organizing a celebration for the joint fleet. Your presence would be appreciated." Leary stepped forward, her eyes meeting Roger's. "And the science team is planning a symposium to discuss the breakthroughs we've made. We'd be honored if you could attend." Roger looked between the two women, acutely aware of the tension simmering beneath the surface. He realized that the challenges ahead extended beyond the political realm. As he prepared to respond, he knew that his words would have implications far beyond a simple social engagement. "I'd be honored to attend both events," Roger said diplomatically. "Perhaps we can discuss the details over dinner." As they walked towards the dining hall, Roger's mind was already racing with the implications of recent events. The successful defense against the Voth had catapulted the human-Andorian alliance into the spotlight, and he knew that every move they made now would be scrutinized by other powers in the sector. Admiral Hawkins caught up with them, datapad in hand. "Shaw, we've got a situation brewing. The Rigelian Confederacy has taken notice of our little partnership." Roger's brow furrowed. "I expected as much. What's their stance?" "Not good," Hawkins replied, lowering his voice. "They're viewing us as a threat to their dominance in the region. Ambassador Krelthor is en route to Andoria as we speak." Zara's antennae twitched. "The Rigelians are not known for their subtlety and diplomacy." "We'll need to tread carefully," Roger mused. "Supreme Counselor Thraz should be informed immediately. We'll need a united front to address their concerns without compromising our alliance." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Roger and Admiral Hawkins worked tirelessly with Andorian officials to prepare for the Rigelian ambassador's arrival. They pored over trade agreements, defense pacts, and scientific collaboration proposals, seeking ways to present their alliance as a stabilizing force rather than a threat. When Ambassador Krelthor's ship docked at the Andorian spaceport, Roger was there to greet him. The Rigelian cut an imposing figure, towering over the human ambassador with his scaled skin shimmering under the artificial lights. "Ambassador Shaw," Krelthor rumbled, his vertical pupils narrowing, "I trust you understand the gravity of our concerns." Roger nodded, maintaining eye contact. "Of course, Ambassador. We're eager to address any misunderstandings and find a path forward that benefits all parties." The negotiations that followed were tense and often fraught. Krelthor demanded concessions that would have gutted the human-Andorian partnership, while Roger and Thraz worked to find compromises that would satisfy Rigelian concerns without sacrificing their core alliance. During a brief recess, Roger received an urgent message from Dr. Chen. Excusing himself, he hurried to the research facility, where he found the scientist practically bouncing with excitement. "Ambassador, we've made an incredible breakthrough," Chen exclaimed, pulling up a holographic display. "The Andorian protein we've been studying, when combined with certain human enzymes, it creates a compound that could enhance physical capabilities in both species." Roger's eyes widened as he absorbed the implications. "Are you certain?" "The simulations are conclusive," Chen nodded. "With proper development, we could see significant improvements in strength, endurance, even healing capabilities." As Roger contemplated the potential impact of this discovery, Zara entered the lab, her eyes gleaming with interest. "I couldn't help but overhear," she said. "This could revolutionize our military capabilities." "It's not without risks," Chen cautioned. "We'd need extensive testing before—" "I'll do it," Zara interrupted. "I volunteer to undergo the treatment." Roger turned to her, concern etched on his face. "Zara, we don't know the long-term effects. It could be dangerous." She met his gaze steadily. "The potential benefits outweigh the risks. Our alliance needs every advantage it can get." After a long moment, Roger nodded reluctantly. "It's your decision, but I want every precaution taken." As Zara began the enhancement process under Dr. Chen's supervision, Roger returned to the negotiations with revitalized commitment. However, the talks took a turn for the worse when Krelthor presented evidence of alleged human Andorian plans to expand into Rigelian territory. "These documents clearly show your intentions," Krelthor growled, slamming a data crystal onto the table. Roger examined the evidence, his mind racing. The plans looked authentic, but he knew they were fabrications. "This is a misunderstanding, Ambassador. I assure you, we have no such intentions." But the damage was done. The Andorian Council members shifted uneasily, and Admiral Hawkins wore a grim expression. In a private meeting with Hawkins and Thraz, Roger voiced his suspicions. "This has to be a deliberate attempt to undermine our alliance. We need to find the source of this misinformation." Thraz nodded, his antennae twitching with agitation. "I'll put our intelligence services on it immediately." Over the next few days, as negotiations stalled, Roger worked tirelessly with human and Andorian intelligence officers to uncover the truth. Their investigation led them to a complex network of Rigelian spies operating on Andoria, feeding false information and sowing discord. With this knowledge, Roger proposed a bold plan, a joint human-Andorian counterintelligence operation to expose the Rigelian plot. To his surprise, Zara, fresh from her enhancement treatments, insisted on joining the team. "I need to put these new abilities to the test," she argued, demonstrating her increased strength by effortlessly bending a metal rod. The operation was a tense affair, with Roger leading the team through the shadowy underbelly of Andorian society. They tracked data trails, intercepted communications, and even engaged in a few hair-raising confrontations with Rigelian agents. Zara's enhanced abilities proved invaluable, her increased speed and strength turning the tide in several close encounters. Roger found himself both impressed and slightly unnerved by her new capabilities. Finally, they gathered enough evidence to expose the Rigelian spy network. In a dramatic confrontation, Roger presented their findings to Ambassador Krelthor and the assembled diplomats. "As you can see," Roger concluded, displaying holographic evidence of Rigelian interference, "the alleged expansion plans were fabrications created by your own agents, Ambassador." The room erupted in a cacophony of voices. Krelthor's scales flushed a deep crimson as he sputtered denials, but the evidence was irrefutable. In the aftermath of the revelation, the diplomatic landscape shifted dramatically. The exposed Rigelian plot backfired, causing neutral species in the sector to view the human-Andorian alliance more favorably. Representatives from the Tellarites and Denobulans approached Roger, expressing interest in joining the partnership. Seizing the moment, Roger proposed an ambitious plan to Admiral Hawkins and Supreme Counselor Thraz. "We have an opportunity to create something greater than a simple alliance," he explained. "An interstellar council bringing together humans, Andorians, and other sympathetic species. A platform for cooperation, scientific exchange, and mutual defense." As discussions about this new interstellar council began, Roger found himself at the center of an expanding web of diplomacy. The human-Andorian alliance had become the catalyst for a potentially sector-wide coalition. With this newfound leverage, Roger prepared for a final confrontation with Ambassador Krelthor. He knew that the future of interstellar relations in the sector hung in the balance, and the Rigelian response to his next move would be crucial. As he entered the conference room where Krelthor waited, Roger steeled himself for the challenge ahead. The decisions made in the coming hours would shape the course of multiple civilizations. He took a deep breath, straightened his uniform, and stepped forward to meet his destiny. Destiny. As Roger entered the conference room, Ambassador Krelthor's imposing figure loomed before him, scales glinting in the artificial light. "Ambassador Shaw," Krelthor rumbled, his vertical pupils narrowing to slits. "I hope you have something substantial to offer, or this meeting will be brief." Roger met the Rigelian's gaze steadily. "I believe we can find common ground, Ambassador. Your concerns are valid, but so are the benefits of joining our alliance." For hours they engaged in intense negotiations. Roger presented data on the economic advantages of the partnership, the potential for shared technological advancements, and the increased security a united front could provide against external threats. As the talks stretched into the night, Krelthor's rigid posture began to soften. Your arguments have merit, he admitted grudgingly, but the Rigelian Confederacy will not be subservient to any alliance. Roger seized the opening. What if we proposed a tiered membership structure? The Rigelians could join as junior partners initially, with a clear path to full membership based on mutual trust and cooperation. Krelthor's scales shifted color, a sign of deep contemplation. An intriguing proposition. I will need to consult with my government. As they prepared to adjourn, alarms blared throughout the complex. Supreme Counselor Thraz burst into the room, his antennae quivering with agitation. Ambassadors, we have a critical situation, Thraz announced. Our sun is experiencing an unprecedented solar flare. Our planetary defenses may not be sufficient to protect us from the radiation. Roger's mind raced. How long do we have? The flare will reach us in approximately 48 hours, Thraz replied grimly. Roger turned to Krelthor. Ambassador, I know we haven't concluded our negotiations, but this crisis affects us all. Will you join us in addressing this threat? Krelthor hesitated, then nodded. The Rigelian Confederacy will offer what assistance we can. Over the next few hours, Roger coordinated with Admiral Hawkins, Dr. Chen, and Andorian scientists to formulate a plan. They proposed using the enhanced shield technology developed through human-Andorian collaboration to create a protective barrier around the planet. In the main control center, holographic displays showed the approaching solar flare and the proposed shield network. Roger addressed the assembled team of human and Andorian engineers. We need to construct and deploy a network of orbital shield generators, he explained, gesturing to the schematics. It's an enormous undertaking, but it's our best chance to protect Andoria. As the teams mobilized, Roger felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see Zara, her eyes gleaming with perseverance. I want to lead one of the deployment teams, she said. My enhanced abilities could be crucial in space. Roger nodded, knowing her skills could make the difference between success and failure. Agreed, but be careful out there. The next 36 hours were a blur of activity. Human and Andorian ships ferried components to orbit, while engineering teams worked tirelessly to assemble the shield generators. Roger coordinated from the ground, managing resources and solving logistical challenges as they arose. Ambassador Krelthor observed the operation with growing interest. Your species work well together, he remarked to Roger during a brief lull. Perhaps there is more to this alliance than I initially believed. As the deadline approached, a new problem emerged. Several key components in the shield network were malfunctioning, threatening to destabilize the entire system. We need someone to manually recalibrate the faulty units, Dr. Chen reported, her face grim. But the radiation levels are already rising. It's extremely dangerous. Before Roger could respond, Zara stepped forward. I'll do it. My enhancements should provide some protection against the radiation. Roger hesitated, torn between the mission's needs and concern for Zara's safety. Are you sure? Zara met his gaze, her antennae curled with tenacity. It's what I was enhanced for. Let me do this. With reluctance, Roger agreed. He watched anxiously as Zara donned her spacesuit and launched from the airlock. On the main view screen, her tiny figure moved between the massive shield generators, working swiftly to repair the malfunctioning units. Radiation levels are spiking, an Andorian technician reported. The flare's leading edge is approaching. Roger leaned forward, his fingers tightening as he gripped the console. Zara status report. Her voice crackled over the comm, strained but determined. Almost there. 2 more units to go. As Zara worked on the final generator, the first wave of the solar flare struck the partially complete shield. Energy cascaded across the barrier, creating a spectacular light show visible from the planet's surface. Shield integrity at 62%, Dr. Chen called out. We need full power to withstand the main flare. Zara, we're out of time, Roger urged. Done! Zara's triumphant voice filled the control room. Initiating full power sequence now. The shield flared to life, a shimmering dome of energy enveloping the planet, just as the full force of the solar flare struck. The room held its collective breath as readings spiked across all monitors. Shield holding steady at 98% integrity, Dr. Chen reported, relief evident in her voice. A cheer erupted in the control room. Roger sagged against the console, the tension of the past 2 days finally releasing. He looked up to see Ambassador Krelthor approaching, an unreadable expression on his scaled face. "Ambassador Shaw," Krelthor began, his voice low, "I have witnessed the strength of your alliance firsthand. The Rigelian Confederacy would be honored to join your partnership under the terms we discussed." Roger straightened, offering his hand to the Rigelian. "We welcome you, Ambassador. Together, we can build something truly remarkable." As the solar flare subsided and Andoria emerged unscathed, Roger knew that this crisis had forged a stronger bond between their species. However, as reports of unrest in some Andorian colonies began to filter in, he realized that new challenges lay ahead. The success of the SHIELD operation had proven the value of their interspecies cooperation, but it had also inflamed isolationist sentiments among some Andorians. These factions argued that Andoria's resources should be focused inward rather than on interstellar alliances. Roger stood at the window of his office, gazing out at the Andorian capital. The SHIELD's faint shimmer was still visible in the upper atmosphere, a testament to what they had achieved together. But he knew that the real work was just beginning. As he turned back to his desk, where plans for the expanded Interstellar Council awaited his attention, Roger pondered the complex path ahead. Balancing the needs and concerns of multiple species while addressing internal divisions would require all of his diplomatic skill. The comm unit on his desk chirped, displaying an incoming message from Admiral Hawkins. New reports of unrest in the outer colonies demanded immediate attention. Roger took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges to come. The Alliance had weathered its first major crisis, but maintaining and strengthening it would be an ongoing mission. Roger's comm unit chirped again, this time with an urgent message from Supreme Counselor Thraz. "Ambassador Shaw, we have a situation on Thavaral Colony. Isolationist factions are gaining traction, and they're vehemently opposed to our alliance. We need to address this before it spreads." Roger frowned, studying the data streaming across his screen. Thavaral was one of Andoria's oldest and most traditional colonies, known for its fierce independence. If isolationist sentiment took root there, it could quickly spread to other outposts. "I understand, Counselor," Roger replied. "I propose a diplomatic mission to Thavaral. We need to show them the tangible benefits of our alliance." Within hours, Roger had assembled a team. Himself, Zara, Dr. Chen, and a group of human and Andorian experts in agriculture, technology, and defense. As their shuttle descended through Thavaral's atmosphere, Roger peered out the viewport at the icy landscape below. "It's not so different from Andoria," Zara observed, her antennae twitching with curiosity. "Maybe not in appearance," Roger agreed, "but politically, it's a whole other world." Their landing was met with a hostile reception. Hundreds of Andorians had gathered outside the spaceport, waving signs with slogans like "Andoria for Andorians" and "No to Alien Influence." The roar of the crowd was deafening as Roger and his team disembarked. Roger stepped forward, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "Citizens of Thavaral," he began, his voice amplified by a translator. "We come in friendship and—" His words were drowned out by a surge of angry shouts. Suddenly, a group of protesters broke through the security cordon, brandishing improvised weapons. They charged toward the diplomatic team, eyes blazing with fury. In a blur of motion, Zara sprang into action. She moved with inhuman speed, disarming the first attacker with a swift strike to the wrist. As two more rushed her, she leapt, somersaulting over their heads and landing behind them. Before they could turn, she had swept their legs out from under them. Roger watched in amazement as Zara single-handedly neutralized the threat, her enhanced abilities on full display. Even some of the protesters paused, murmuring in grudging admiration. As security forces moved in to restore order, Roger noticed something about the crowd. Many of the Andorians looked gaunt, their skin a pale shade of blue that spoke of poor health. He caught the eye of a local official who hadn't joined in the protests. "What's going on here?" Roger asked quietly. "These people look ill." The official, a female Andorian named Thylek, glanced around nervously before replying. It's the crops. Our soil has been degrading for years. Nothing grows well anymore. People are starving, and they blame off-worlders for not helping. Roger's mind raced. This was an opportunity to demonstrate the Alliance's value in a very real, immediate way. He opened a secure channel to Andoria. "Leary, Dr. Foster, I need your help," he said. "How quickly can you get samples of those new hybrid plants to Thal?" Within days, a shipment arrived. Roger organized a public demonstration in Thavaral's central plaza. Curious colonists gathered, their hostility tempered by desperate hope. "These plants," Roger explained, holding up a seedling, "are a true product of our alliance. They combine the hardiness of Andorian flora with the rapid growth of Earth species. They'll thrive in your soil and provide the nutrients your people need." Alongside Andorian farmers, Roger and his team planted test crops. Over the next week, the plants grew with astonishing speed, their blue-green leaves reaching for Thavaral's weak sun. The colonists watched in growing amazement as the withered fields they knew transformed into lush gardens. As the demonstration entered its second week, Roger received an urgent communication from Admiral Hawkins. "We've detected a Voth scout ship on the edge of the Thavaral system," Hawkins reported grimly. "We think they might be planning an attack on the colony." Roger's blood ran cold. The Voth were a dangerous, technologically advanced species that had been probing the edges of Allied space. An attack on an isolated colony like Thavaral could be devastating. He knew he had to act fast. Roger called for a colony-wide meeting in the central plaza. As the curious and still somewhat suspicious Andorians gathered, he took a deep breath. "People of Thavaral," he began, "I have news that concerns us all. A Voth scout ship has been detected near your system." A ripple of fear ran through the crowd. The Voth's reputation was well known, even on distant colonies. "You have a choice to make," Roger continued. "You can face this threat alone, or you can accept the protection of our alliance." Murmurs of debate broke out among the colonists. Roger pressed on. "To show you what the alliance can offer, I've called in our joint defense fleet." On cue, the sky above Thavaral lit up as a mixed fleet of human and Andorian ships dropped out of warp. Sleek Andorian escorts flew in formation with powerful human cruisers, their combined firepower a clear deterrent to any would-be attacker. The colonists gasped in awe at the display. Roger could see the calculations happening behind their eyes. The protection this fleet could offer, combined with the agricultural advancements they'd witnessed. Thylek, the local official, stepped forward. "Ambassador Shaw," she said, her voice carrying across the now silent plaza, "I think I speak for many when I say we may have judged your alliance too hastily." A chorus of agreement rose from the crowd, but Roger noticed a group at the back, their faces set in scowls of disapproval. The hardcore isolationists weren't convinced, and he could see them huddled together, whispering urgently. As the meeting dispersed, Roger's comm unit chimed with messages from other Andorian colonies. Word of the Thavaral demonstration had spread, and other isolated outposts were requesting similar aid. Roger smiled grimly. They'd made progress here, but he knew the battle for hearts and minds was just the beginning. The isolationists would likely plan more drastic action, and the Voth threat still loomed. He gazed up at the fleet arrayed in Thavaral's sky, a physical manifestation of the Alliance's strength. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Together. Roger's contemplation was interrupted by a sudden alert from the colony's defense systems. He rushed to the command center, where a holographic display showed a small group of Voth ships entering the system. "They're here," he muttered, activating the comm channels. "All ships, battle stations. This is not a drill." The joint human Andorian fleet sprang into action, forming a protective barrier around Thavaral. Roger watched as the sleek vessels maneuvered into position, their engines glowing against the backdrop of space. "Ambassador," called out Thylek, who had joined him in the command center, "what are your orders for the colony's defenses?" Roger studied the tactical display, noting the Voth ship's erratic movement patterns. "They're probing our defenses, looking for weaknesses. Activate all ground-based shield generators and arm the orbital defense platforms." As the orders were relayed, Roger felt the tension in the room rise. The colonists, many of whom had been skeptical of the alliance just days ago, now looked to him for leadership. The first Voth attack came swiftly. A pair of ships broke from their formation, accelerating toward the outermost defense perimeter. Alliance vessels moved to intercept, energy weapons lighting up the void. "They're testing our response times," Roger observed. He opened a channel to the fleet. "Kessock Squadron, swing wide and come in behind them. Andorian cruisers, hold the line." The battle unfolded like a deadly dance. Voth ships would dart in, unleash a barrage of fire, then retreat before the Alliance could mount a significant counterattack. Roger's strategic mind worked overtime, anticipating movements and repositioning ships to counter the Voth's hit-and-run tactics. Hours passed, and the tension in the command center grew palpable. Sweat beaded on Roger's forehead as he coordinated the defense efforts. Then a shout from one of the sensor operators caught his attention. "Ambassador, a Voth ship has broken through the defensive line. It's heading for the atmosphere." Roger's mind raced. The planetary shields weren't fully operational yet. If that ship got through, it could cause devastating damage to the colony. "We need to stop that ship," he declared. "Are there any interceptors in range?" Before anyone could respond, Zara's voice crackled over the comm. "I'm on it, Roger. Launching now." Roger watched on the tactical display as a small, agile fighter launched from the colony's surface. Zara's enhanced reflexes made her an exceptional pilot, and she pushed the interceptor to its limits as she pursued the Voth vessel. The command center fell silent, all eyes on the holographic representation of the chase. Zara's fighter closed the gap, weaving through the Voth ship's defensive fire. "Come on, Zara," Roger whispered, his fist clenched. Suddenly, Zara's voice filled the room. "Targeting their propulsion systems. Firing now." A burst of energy erupted from her fighter, striking the Voth ship with pinpoint accuracy. The larger vessel shuddered, its engines sputtering and dying. As it began to lose altitude, Zara's voice came through again. "Direct hit. They're going down, but I can guide them to an uninhabited area." Roger nodded, relief washing over him. "Do it, Zara. We'll have a team ready to secure the crash site." As Zara skillfully herded the damaged Voth ship to a safe landing zone, Roger assembled a strike team. Within minutes, they were racing across Thavaral's icy surface in hover vehicles. Upon reaching the crash site, they found the Voth crew scrambling to destroy equipment and data stores. Roger raised his weapon, calling out, "Surrender! You're outnumbered and outgunned!" The Voth soldiers responded with a hail of energy blasts, forcing Roger and his team to take cover behind ice formations and wreckage. Zara landed her fighter nearby and joined the fray, her enhanced strength and speed giving her a significant advantage in the close-quarters combat. Roger found himself fighting side by side with Zara, their movements synchronized as if they'd trained together for years. He provided covering fire while she closed in on the Voth, disarming them with swift, precise strikes. The battle was intense but brief. With their superior numbers and Zara's abilities, the Alliance team quickly overpowered the Voth. As the last enemy soldier was subdued, Roger approached the ship's data core, which the Voth had been desperately trying to destroy. "Let's see what secrets you were trying to hide," he murmured, connecting a decryption device to the alien computer. As the data began to stream across his handheld screen, Roger's eyes widened. "They were specifically targeting Thavaral," he announced to the team. They saw the isolationist sentiment as an opportunity to gain a foothold in Andorian space. The implications were clear. The Alliance had not only protected Thavaral, but had likely prevented a much larger incursion into Andorian territory. As news of the successful defense and the intelligence gathered from the Voth ship spread, the mood on Thavaral shifted dramatically. Colonists who had been wary of the Alliance now spoke of it with gratitude and pride. The hybrid crops continued to flourish, a vivid reminder of the benefits of cooperation. Seizing the moment, Roger organized a colony-wide referendum on fully joining the Alliance. However, not everyone was swayed by recent events. A group of die-hard isolationists, led by a fiery Andorian named Shran, refused to accept the changing tide of public opinion. As the day of the referendum approached, tensions in the colony reached a boiling point. Roger was in his makeshift office, reviewing security protocols for the upcoming vote, when an urgent alert came through. "Ambassador!" Thylek's voice was strained. The isolationists are attacking the main power distribution center. They're trying to disrupt the referendum. Without hesitation, Roger sprang into action. He had anticipated such a move and had stationed Zara and a team of loyal colonists to guard key infrastructure. As he raced towards the power center, he could hear the sounds of energy weapons and shouted demands. Arriving at the scene, Roger found a tense standoff in progress. Shran and his followers, armed with stolen weapons, had taken up defensive positions around the facility. Zara and her team were holding them at bay, but the situation was precarious. Shran's voice rang out, filled with anger and desperation. All off-worlders must leave Thavril immediately. We won't allow our independence to be stolen by alien influencers. Roger stepped forward, hands raised in a gesture of peace. Shran, listen to me. The Alliance doesn't threaten Andorian independence. It preserves it. Without our combined strength, how would we stand against threats like the Voth? As Roger attempted to reason with Shran, he noticed movement at the edge of the gathered crowd. Lyri had arrived from Andoria, her antennae twitching with urgency. She pushed her way to Roger's side, whispering urgently in his ear. Roger's expression hardened as he processed the information Lyri had brought. He turned back to Shran, his voice carrying across the tense scene. Shran, we know about your communications with the Voth. You've been negotiating to allow them a presence on Thavaral in exchange for so-called independence. A collective gasp rose from the crowd. Shran's followers looked at their leader in shock and disbelief. Many immediately lowered their weapons, stepping away from the isolationist group. Shran, his plan exposed, let out a roar of frustration. He reached into his coat, pulling out a small device. If I can't have Thavaral, no one will, he shouted, his finger hovering over a button. Time seemed to slow. Roger recognized the device as a detonator, likely connected to explosives planted in the power center. He tensed, preparing to rush Shran, knowing he'd never make it in time. But Zara was already moving. With her enhanced speed, she crossed the distance between them in a blur. Her hand closed around the detonator, crushing it an instant before Shran could activate it. Roger tackled Shran, using his combat training to quickly subdue the Andorian. As he secured Shran's hands behind his back, he looked up to see the last of the isolationists surrendering to the authorities. In the aftermath of the failed attack, the referendum proceeded as planned. The colonists of Thavaral, having witnessed both the external threat of the Voth and the internal danger of extremism, voted overwhelmingly in favor of fully joining the alliance. As Roger prepared to depart Thavaral, satisfied with the mission's success, his comm unit chimed with an urgent message from Admiral Hawkins. The Admiral's face appeared on the screen, his expression grim. Roger, we've analyzed the data from the captured Voth ship. It's worse than we thought. There's a much larger Voth fleet massing at the edge of Andorian space. We're looking at a full-scale invasion, aimed right at the heart of Andorian territory. Roger's mind raced with the implications. The victory on Thavaral now seemed small in comparison to the looming threat. He knew that the true test of the alliance was yet to come. Understood, Admiral, Roger replied, his voice steady despite the weight of the news. I'm on my way back. We need to prepare our defenses and alert the Andorian High Command. The real battle is about to begin. Begin! Roger's teeth clenched as he absorbed the gravity of Admiral Hawkins's words. The Voth threat loomed larger than ever, casting a shadow over their recent victory on Thavaral. I'm on my way, Admiral, he said, his voice steady despite the churning in his gut. Alert the Andorian High Command. We'll need every resource at our disposal. The journey back to Andoria passed in a blur of strategy meetings and data analysis. As Roger's ship entered orbit, he was struck by the frenetic energy emanating from the planet below. The capital was a hive of activity, ships darting to and fro as the Andorians scrambled to prepare their defenses. Upon landing, Roger was immediately whisked to a high-security briefing room. Admiral Hawkins stood before a holographic display, his face grim as he outlined the full extent of the Voth invasion force. Over 500 warships, Hawkins said, gesturing to the red mass of icons creeping towards Andorian space. The largest fleet we've ever encountered. Roger studied the display, his mind racing. The experiences on Thavaral had taught him the value of unconventional thinking. As he watched the simulated approach of the Voth armada, an idea began to form. What if we could buy ourselves time? He mused aloud, drawing curious looks from the assembled leaders. The shield technology we developed for Thal, could we scale it up? Dr. Chen, who had been quietly observing from a corner, stepped forward. Theoretically, yes, but to what end? Roger's eyes gleamed with grit. A planet-wide shield for Andoria itself. It would give us the breathing room we need to mount a proper counteroffensive. The room erupted in a flurry of discussion. Andorian engineers conferred with Dr. Chen, rapidly assessing the feasibility of Roger's proposal. Leary, who had arrived shortly after Roger, immediately grasped the potential of the plan. I can coordinate with our power grid technicians, she offered, her antennae twitching with excitement. We'll need to reconfigure the entire planetary energy distribution system, but it's possible. As the scientists and engineers set to work, Roger turned his attention to the broader strategic picture. He requested an emergency session with the joint leadership of the human, Andorian, and Rigelian forces. The atmosphere was tense as Roger stood before the assembled leaders. He took a deep breath, knowing that what he was about to propose would push the boundaries of their newfound alliance. The shield will buy us time, he began, but it's not enough. We need to end the Voth threat once and for all. Roger outlined his plan, detailing how they could use the technology from the captured Voth ship to infiltrate the enemy fleet. As he spoke, he could see the mix of concern and admiration on the faces before him. It's a daring plan, the Rigelian ambassador commented, his crystalline form shimmering as he spoke. But the risks are immense. They are, Roger agreed. But the alternative is to face an endless cycle of Voth incursions. This is our chance to strike at the heart of their fleet and disable it from within. As the leaders debated, a familiar voice cut through the din. I volunteer to lead the infiltration team. All eyes turned to Zara, who stood tall and resolute. Roger felt a surge of pride mixed with fear. He knew her enhanced abilities made her the ideal candidate, but the thought of her facing such danger made his heart clench. If Zara's going, so am I, Roger found himself saying. The room fell silent, the weight of his decision palpable. Admiral Hawkins stepped forward, his expression a mixture of concern and respect. Are you sure about this, Roger? You're not just an ambassador anymore. You're the linchpin of this alliance. Roger nodded, his drive firm. That's precisely why I need to go. This mission could determine the fate of everything we've built. I need to see it through personally. As the meeting adjourned and preparations kicked into high gear, Roger found a moment alone with Zara. They stood on a balcony overlooking the bustling Andorian capital, the icy winds whipping around them. You don't have to do this, Zara said softly, her eyes searching his face. Roger turned to her, suddenly acutely aware of the depth of his feelings. Yes, I do. And not just for the alliance. He reached out, taking her hand in his. Zara, I can't imagine facing this without you by my side. Their lips met in a kiss that was both tender and urgent, years of unspoken emotion pouring out in a single moment. As they parted, Zara's enhanced senses picked up the rapid beating of Roger's heart. Whatever happens, she whispered, we face it together. The next days passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Dr. Chen and his team worked tirelessly to scale up the shield generators, while Leary coordinated with Andorian engineers to integrate the system with the planet's power grid. Roger and Zara spent every available moment studying the captured Voth ship, familiarizing themselves with its systems and planning their infiltration. As the Voth fleet entered the outer reaches of the Andorian system, a tense calm settled over the capital. Roger stood in the command center, watching as the massive enemy armada approached on the tactical display. Shield status? He asked, his voice tight. Online and holding, came the response from Dr. Chen. But it's untested at this scale. We don't know how long it will last against a sustained assault. Roger nodded grimly. Then we'd better make this count. He turned to Zara, who stood ready in her infiltration gear. With a final nod to Admiral Hawkins, they made their way to the launch bay where the captured Voth ship waited. As they climbed aboard, Roger took one last look at the icy expanse of Andoria. The fate of not just this world, but the entire alliance rested on their shoulders. With a deep breath, he sealed the hatch, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The captured Voth ship hummed to life, its alien systems responding to their touch. As they lifted off, the sky above Andoria erupted in a dazzling display of weapons fire. The battle for the future of the Alliance had begun.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.